Nobody in the museum spoke. Nobody could. The holographic projection stretched across every screen, every wall, every display surface available. And still, it wasn't enough. Human civilization was simply too large. Professor Tarek stood frozen. The ancient historian had spent his entire life studying lost civilizations. He had researched empires, wars, extinct species, ancient technologies. Nothing in his experience prepared him for what he was seeing now. The structure nearest the display appeared larger than a star system, not a planet, not a station. An entire star system, artificial, built, engineered. The realization made his knees weak. Commander Reth stared at the projection. What is that? Maya followed his gaze. The nearest transport hub. The commander blinked. Nearest? Yes. The room became silent again. Everything about human civilization seemed designed to destroy common sense. Professor Tarek finally found his voice. How many worlds does humanity control? Maya looked thoughtful, then shrugged. Nobody really counts anymore. The historian nearly fainted. Nobody counts anymore. That answer was more terrifying than any number. The projection shifted. Entire clusters of stars appeared, connected by impossible corridors of light, vast transportation networks spanning unimaginable distances. Worlds, cities, shipyards, research complexes, exploration fleets. The scale was incomprehensible. Council Director Solara appeared on screen once again. Her face had lost all color. Why? Every eye turned toward her. The council leader looked directly at Maya. Why didn't you contact us? The question echoed throughout the room. It was the question everyone wanted answered. Humanity had survived. Humanity had expanded. Humanity had become something extraordinary. So why remain silent for 4 centuries? Maya's expression softened. For the first time, she looked genuinely sad. Because we tried. The room froze. Solara frowned. What? Maya pointed toward the fake skeleton display. The answer has been standing in this room the entire time. Nobody understood. Then Professor Tarek slowly turned toward the exhibit. The skeleton, the plaque, the lies. And suddenly, his eyes widened. No. Maya nodded. The historian's face drained of color. No. Commander Rith looked confused. What? Professor Tarek stared at the skeleton, then at Maya, then back again. Finally he whispered. The first expedition returned. The museum became silent. Maya smiled. Yes. The historian's hands trembled. The first human fleet actually came back. Yes. And someone hid it. Maya nodded again. Yes. Everything suddenly made sense. The missing records. The false history. The fake remains. The manufactured skeleton. Someone had erased the truth. Someone had hidden humanity. Not because humanity vanished. Because somebody wanted the galaxy to believe humanity vanished. The implications were horrifying. Council Director Solara slowly sat down. Ooh. The single word felt heavy, dangerous. Maya's expression darkened slightly. That's a long story. Professor Tarek leaned forward. We have time. Maya looked toward the stars. Then she nodded. 400 years ago, the room became silent. The first expedition returned with proof. Proof of what? Other civilizations. The historian swallowed. The same answer. Again. The civilizations beyond known space. Maya continued. The expedition wanted to share what they found. But before they could, she stopped. The museum waited. Every person listening felt their heartbeat quicken. Maya finally finished the sentence. They were attacked. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Professor Tarek stared. By who? The answer came immediately. People who feared change. Silence. Council Director Solara frowned. Within the Galactic Union? Yes. The room froze. The first expedition had not disappeared. It had been betrayed. The realization spread through the museum like poison. Maya walked toward the skeleton display. Her fingers lightly touched the glass. They couldn't destroy humanity. They couldn't stop exploration. They couldn't stop the truth. Her eyes hardened. So they buried the story instead. Professor Tarek felt sick. For centuries, entire generations had been taught a lie. Entire civilizations had accepted fiction as history. Then Maya smiled again, a much warmer smile. But they failed. The historian blinked. What do you mean? Maya pointed upward, toward the projection, toward the impossible civilization beyond known space. Humanity kept growing. The stars reflected in her eyes. We built. We explored. We learned. We survived. Then she looked directly at the fake skeleton, and eventually, her smile widened slightly. We came back. The room fell silent. Every visitor, every officer, every council member, every historian, all of them understood the same thing. Humanity had not returned seeking revenge. Humanity had not returned seeking conquest. Humanity had simply returned to correct the record, to reveal the truth, and perhaps, to reconnect with the galaxy that had forgotten them. Then alarms suddenly echoed through the museum. Everyone jumped. Commander Reth spun toward the nearest display. What now? The sensor officer looked terrified. Absolutely terrified. Sir, what? The officer pointed at the screen. The human fleet. All 12,000 ships. They had moved. Not aggressively, not threateningly, just enough to create a perfect formation. Professor Tarek stared. The formation looked familiar. Very familiar. Then realization struck. The fleet wasn't preparing for battle. It was creating something. A symbol. The same symbol hidden beneath the museum exhibit. 3 overlapping stars. The symbol of the first expedition. The symbol of humanity. The symbol that history tried to erase. Billions of people across the galaxy watched the live feed. And for the first time, humanity announced its presence openly. Not with weapons, not with threats, not with war. With a reminder that truth eventually returns, no matter how deeply it is buried. Maya looked at the symbol in the stars, then quietly smiled. Because somewhere beyond those ships, beyond the fleet, beyond the exploration vessels, beyond known space itself, humanity was finally coming home. The symbol of the 3 stars hung across space like a declaration. 12,000 human ships maintained perfect formation. Not a single vessel drifted. Not a single movement appeared wasted. The precision alone frightened military analysts throughout the galaxy, because discipline on that scale required something extraordinary. It required unity. And unity was something most galactic civilizations had never truly achieved. Inside the Museum of Extinct Civilizations, the atmosphere had completely changed. Only hours earlier, visitors had laughed at humanity. Now they watched in stunned silence. History itself seemed to be shifting beneath their feet. Commander Reith stared at the fleet display. I've never seen coordination like that. Maya smiled slightly. That's because you're looking at explorers. The commander blinked. Explorers? Yes. He looked back at the fleet. The words somehow made the situation even worse. If explorers looked like this, nobody wanted to imagine the military. Across the Galactic Union, emergency meetings continued. Governments demanded information. Military leaders demanded explanations. Historians demanded access to records. Scientists demanded contact with humanity. Everyone wanted answers, and all of them were waiting for one thing: the first official meeting. Finally, Council Director Solara stood. Her voice echoed across every screen. Miss Maya Vale. Maya looked up. The Galactic Council formally requests diplomatic contact with humanity. The museum became silent. This was history. The first official communication between the Galactic Union and humanity in over 4 centuries. Maya nodded. Request accepted. The room froze. Just like that. No negotiations, no conditions, no demands. Humanity simply accepted. Solara seemed surprised too. You agree? Maya laughed softly. Of course. The council director frowned. You don't seem concerned. Maya looked genuinely confused. Why would I be? Several council members exchanged nervous looks. Professor Tarek almost smiled. Humans clearly viewed the situation very differently. Then every screen changed again. The symbol of the 3 stars disappeared. A new image formed. A massive circular chamber, bright white walls, towering windows, stars visible beyond transparent crystal. At the center stood a large round table. Empty chairs surrounded it. Commander Reith stared. What is that? Maya smiled. The meeting room. The commander blinked. Where? The answer came immediately. The horizon. The museum became silent. The horizon. The giant vessel sitting at the edge of the system. The exploration ship. The ship larger than fleets. The realization made several officials nervous. Solara looked toward her advisors, then back toward Maya. You're inviting us aboard? Yes. The council director hesitated. Everything about the situation felt dangerous. Unknown civilization, unknown technology, unknown intentions. Then again, humanity had already demonstrated overwhelming superiority. If they wanted conflict, they wouldn't be requesting diplomacy. Finally, Solara nodded. We accept. Across the museum, relief spread through the crowd. At least the first contact wasn't turning into a war. Yet, then Professor Tarek raised a hand. Before the meeting begins, everyone looked toward him. The elderly historian slowly approached Maya. His eyes drifted toward the fake skeleton one last time. Then he asked the question that had haunted him since the beginning. Who created the lie? Silence. The room immediately became tense, because everyone wanted the answer. Who erased humanity? Who manufactured the skeleton? Who rewrote history? Maya looked toward the stars. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she finally answered. It wasn't one person. The historian frowned. What do you mean? It was a group. The room became silent. Maya's expression darkened. A coalition of governments. Council Director Solara immediately stiffened. Professor Tarek felt cold. Very cold. Maya continued. They were terrified. Of what? The answer came instantly. Change. Nobody spoke. Nobody interrupted. The human continued. The first expedition returned with knowledge. Knowledge changes civilizations. Knowledge shifts power. Knowledge creates uncertainty. Her eyes slowly moved across the room, and uncertainty frightens politicians. Several council members looked uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. Professor Tarek noticed. So did everyone else. Then Maya delivered the next blow. The people responsible have been dead for centuries. The room relaxed slightly, until she continued. Their systems survived. The room froze again. Council Director Solara's face hardened. What exactly are you implying? Maya looked directly at her. Nothing. Then she smiled. I'm stating a fact. Silence. Absolute silence. The atmosphere suddenly felt dangerous. Not because of threats, because of truth. Then a voice interrupted. A young museum archivist ran into Hall 7, out of breath, carrying an ancient data crystal. Professor Tarek immediately recognized it. His eyes widened. No. The archivist nodded. We found it. The room became silent. The crystal looked ancient, older than any modern storage system, older than the museum itself. Commander Rith stepped forward. What is it? The archivist swallowed, then answered. A sealed archive. Professor Tarek's heart nearly stopped. The old historian immediately knew what that meant. The hidden records, the missing history, the truth. Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. Not surprise, recognition, as if she already knew exactly what was inside. The crystal was connected to the museum network. Lights flickered. Ancient files appeared. Damaged records, corrupted reports, forgotten communications. Then, one file opened. The room froze. An old recording appeared. A human captain standing on the bridge of a starship. The symbol of the 3 stars behind him. Professor Tarek's breathing stopped. The recording timestamp was over 400 years old. The captain looked directly into the camera, then spoke. To whoever finds this, the room became completely silent. Humanity survived. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The captain continued. We crossed the Perseus Expanse. We made contact. We discovered civilizations beyond known space. The old recording flickered. The captain's expression hardened. But elements within the Galactic Union have attempted to suppress this information. The room exploded into whispers. Proof. Actual proof. Not theory. Not speculation. Proof. Then the captain delivered one final sentence. A sentence that changed everything. If you're watching this, he smiled, then eventually the truth won. The recording ended. Silence filled the museum. Professor Tarek felt tears in his eyes. 4 centuries. 400 years. The truth had waited 4 centuries, and now, it had finally returned. Maya quietly looked toward the stars, toward the horizon, toward the civilization humanity had built beyond the edge of the galaxy. Then she smiled, because for the first time in centuries, humanity no longer needed to hide. The horizon was beautiful. That was the first thing Council Director Solara noticed. Not terrifying, not intimidating, beautiful. The diplomatic shuttle emerged from hyperspace and entered the vast docking corridor of the human vessel. Every member of the delegation expected something different. Military power, weapons, defensive systems, a display of superiority. Instead, they found art. Massive gardens stretched beneath transparent domes. Artificial rivers flowed through floating parks. Children played beneath giant trees that should not have existed inside a spacecraft. Birds crossed the sky, real birds. Professor Tarek stared through the shuttle window. His voice barely worked. "This is an exploration vessel?" Maya smiled from her seat. "Yes." Nobody spoke after that, because every civilization in the galaxy built ships for efficiency. Humans built ships for living. The shuttle finally landed. The doors opened, and silence filled the delegation. A welcoming party stood waiting. Not soldiers, not politicians, families, scientists, engineers, teachers, artists, hundreds of ordinary humans. They smiled warmly as the visitors stepped onto the platform. Professor Tarek immediately noticed something strange. Nobody seemed impressed by the Galactic Council. Nobody seemed nervous. Nobody seemed intimidated. The humans treated them like guests, nothing more, nothing less. For the first time in centuries, the most powerful government in the galaxy felt small, very small. Maya stepped forward. "Welcome aboard." Council Director Solara looked around. "Where is your military escort?" Maya blinked. "What military escort?" The Council Director frowned. "You invited foreign governments onto one of your largest vessels." "Yes. And there are no guards?" Maya looked genuinely confused. "Why would we need guards?" Nobody had an answer. The human delegation began guiding their visitors through the ship. Every corridor seemed impossible. Entire forests existed inside the vessel. Research districts stretched for kilometers. Universities operated alongside engineering complexes. The horizon wasn't a ship. It was a city, a civilization, a home. Professor Tarek stopped near a massive observation window. Stars filled the darkness beyond. Then he noticed something. Far in the distance, tiny lights, hundreds of them. No, thousands. The old historian narrowed his eyes. "What are those?" Maya followed his gaze, then smiled. "Traffic." The room became silent. Traffic. The word felt absurd. The lights weren't stars. They were ships, countless ships, moving between destinations, crossing routes, transporting citizens, exploring, trading, living. Human civilization wasn't surviving. It was thriving. Then the delegation finally entered the diplomatic chamber. The same chamber they had seen through the transmission, the giant circular room, the stars visible beyond crystal walls, the round table at the center. Only now, the room wasn't empty. Several humans were already waiting. Some young, some old. Different backgrounds, different professions, different uniforms. But one woman immediately commanded attention. Silver hair, calm eyes, simple uniform. Maya's grandmother. The same woman who had appeared through the transmission. Professor Tarek instantly recognized her. The older woman smiled. "Welcome." Solara sat slowly. "You are the leader of humanity?" The woman laughed softly. Several humans smiled. Maya covered her face. "Oh no." The older woman looked amused. "What?" Maya shook her head. "They still think we have one leader." The room became awkwardly silent. Solara frowned. "You don't?" The older woman smiled. "No." The council director stared. "No government? We have governments. No ruler? No. No emperor? No. No supreme council? No." Professor Tarek blinked repeatedly. "Then who is in charge?" The human delegation exchanged glances. Finally Maya answered. "Depends." The historian groaned. "Depends on what?" "The problem." Nobody liked that answer, yet somehow it explained everything. Humanity had grown beyond structures the galaxy understood. Then the silver-haired woman stood. "My name is Eleanor Vale." Professor Tarek froze. Vale. The same family name as Maya. The realization hit instantly. Maya. Eleanor nodded. "My granddaughter." The historian smiled despite himself. At least one thing still made sense. Then Eleanor activated a holographic display. The room darkened. Stars appeared. Galaxies. Clusters. Vast regions of space. The map expanded farther and farther, beyond the Galactic Union, beyond known space, beyond the Perseus Expanse, then farther still. The room became silent. A golden network stretched across the stars. Professor Tarek stared. "What is that?" Eleanor looked at him kindly. "Home." The historian nearly stopped breathing. The map continued expanding. More systems, more colonies, more routes, more worlds. Eventually, Commander Reth whispered the question everyone feared. How large is human civilization? Silence. Maya looked at her grandmother. Eleanor looked at Maya. Both seemed unsure how to answer. Finally, Eleanor smiled. Large enough. Nobody laughed. Then she added, and still growing. The room froze. Every government representative suddenly understood something terrifying. Humanity had not reached its limit. Humanity was still expanding, still exploring, still discovering. 400 years beyond the galaxy, and they still weren't finished. Then another holographic display appeared. This one showed Earth, blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, the cradle of humanity. Professor Tarek smiled, finally. Something familiar. Then the image zoomed outward, and his smile vanished. Earth wasn't alone. Thousands of worlds surrounded it, protected it, connected to it. Human civilization had transformed its home system into something extraordinary. A living monument. The room became silent. Eleanor studied the visitors carefully, then asked the question nobody expected. What happens next? Solara frowned. What do you mean? Eleanor folded her hands. For 4 centuries your galaxy believed humanity was extinct. She gestured toward the stars. Now you know we're alive. Silence. The question hung in the air. What happens next? Nobody knew. Not the council, not the military, not the historians, not even Maya, because the future had just changed. And for the first time in 400 years, humanity and the galaxy stood at the beginning of a new chapter. Then suddenly, an alert appeared. Red, urgent, unexpected. Every human in the room turned toward it. Maya's smile disappeared instantly. Eleanor's expression hardened. The room went silent, because for the first time since arriving, the humans looked worried. Very worried. And whatever had frightened a civilization this powerful could not be good. The red alert flashed across every display in the diplomatic chamber. Silence instantly filled the room. Council Director Solara noticed the change immediately. Until now, every human they had encountered had appeared calm, confident, relaxed, almost impossible to intimidate. That confidence was suddenly gone. Maya stood up. Fast, too fast. Professor Tarek felt a chill run down his spine. For the first time since entering the horizon, the humans looked concerned. Eleanor Vale activated the alert. A holographic image appeared above the table. The Galactic Council stared. Commander Reith stared. Professor Tarek stared. Then everyone froze. Because the image wasn't a fleet. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't an invasion force. It was a signal. An ancient signal. Older than anything in Galactic Union history. Older than the first expedition. Older than every known civilization. The room became silent. Professor Tarek swallowed. What is it? Nobody answered immediately. Eleanor's eyes remained fixed on the display. Then she finally spoke. The reason we kept exploring. The room froze. Maya slowly stepped beside her grandmother. The signal pulsed again. Ancient, mysterious, impossible. Solara frowned. You mean this is what humanity found beyond the Perseus Expanse? Yes. The council leader looked confused. Then why are you worried? For several seconds, nobody answered. Then Maya quietly spoke. Because it just answered us. Silence. Complete silence. The room stopped breathing. Professor Tarek stared. The signal answered? Eleanor nodded slowly. For 400 years we searched. For 400 years we studied. For 400 years we listened. The signal pulsed again. Then Eleanor delivered the truth. And today, her eyes moved toward the stars. The something listened back. The room froze. Every person suddenly understood the scale of the situation. Humanity had not crossed galaxies searching for conquest. They had been searching for answers, and now something had answered. The display changed. Coordinates appeared. A location far beyond explored space, far beyond even humanity's known frontier. The signal source had activated, for the first time in recorded history. Professor Tarek's voice trembled. What do you think it is? Maya smiled slightly. The same smile she had worn in the museum, the smile of a curious explorer. We don't know. The historian blinked. You don't know? No. The answer somehow made everything worse. If humanity didn't know, nobody knew. Eleanor looked around the table, at the council members, at the officers, at the scientists, at the historians. Then she smiled. A warm smile, a hopeful smile. The kind of smile humanity had carried across impossible distances. For 4 centuries, she pointed toward the stars. We explored alone. The room remained silent. Then she extended her hand toward Council Director Solara. A simple gesture, yet somehow more powerful than fleets, more powerful than governments, more powerful than history itself. Solara looked at the offered hand. The gesture represented something extraordinary. A second chance, a new beginning, a future nobody had expected. Slowly, she accepted it. The humans smiled. The council members relaxed. Professor Tarek closed his eyes briefly. History was changing again, but this time for the better. Outside the horizon, the 12,000 human ships shifted formation, not into battle positions, not into defensive positions, into celebration patterns. Lights illuminated the darkness. Beautiful, peaceful, hopeful. Across the galaxy, billions watched. And for the first time, humanity was no longer extinct, no longer forgotten, no longer a museum exhibit. Humanity had returned. Not with armies, not with threats, not with revenge, but with an invitation to explore, to learn, to grow, to look beyond the horizon together. Professor Tarek eventually returned to Hall 7, back to the museum, back to the fake skeleton, the exhibit that had started everything. Workers were already dismantling it, removing the false plaque, removing the manufactured remains, removing 4 centuries of lies. The old historian watched quietly. Then he approached the empty display case. A young museum worker looked up. "What should we put here now?" Professor Tarek smiled. For the first time in days, a genuine smile. Then he looked through the museum dome, toward the stars, toward the horizon, toward humanity, and finally answered, "Nothing." The worker blinked. "What?" Professor Tarek's eyes reflected the endless galaxy above. "The story isn't over." The worker slowly smiled, and together they looked upward. Because somewhere beyond the stars, beyond the Perseus Expanse, beyond every map ever drawn, a new journey had already begun. The ancient signal continued calling. Humanity continued exploring. And now, the galaxy would follow. Far above the museum, the symbol of the 3 stars glowed among the human fleet. A symbol once buried, a symbol once forgotten. A symbol that survived centuries of lies. And beneath it, a message appeared across every major network in the Galactic Union. A message from humanity. Simple, short, impossible to misunderstand. "We never disappeared." The message paused, then one final line appeared. A line that would be remembered for generations. "You simply stopped looking." HFY Ending of the story. Like and subscribe to my channel for more HFY sci-fi stories.